Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing for Thursday, the 28th of September. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How are we getting on, Joshua?
Good, Derek, yeah. More enjoyable game to watch at Ibrox, which hasn't been the case in the last couple of weeks. So enjoyed it and hopefully some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we do that, folks, we've got a sponsorship opportunity available. If you want your brand recognised with the morning briefing show, then there's a time to get in touch with us. You can DM us either on Twitter or Facebook, or they can contact Joshua. They can contact you directly, Joshua, can't they?
Yeah, my email is cryptically joshua.barry@newsquest.co.uk. We'll maybe put that in the description. Hopefully it doesn't attract loads of abuse. But yeah, as you say, Derek, we've had lots of kind of successful sponsorship opportunities in the past, looking for a new one at the moment. So if you're maybe a business owner or you want more brand recognition, get in touch. Love to talk with you about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's talk Rangers then. They progressed to the semi-finals of the League Cup last night. A pretty routine in the end. 4-0 win over Livingston. They'll now face Hearts in the semis. That clash will take place at Hampden either the 4th or 5th of November. Rangers opened the scoring. Abdallah Sima, perhaps controversially, an apparent push wasn't looked at by VAR. It was a fantastic finish, you've got to say, from him. That was the scoreline at half-time. Ridvan then added a second with a lovely mazy run before toe poking the ball into the back of the net. He then hobbled off injured, with what we were told by Michael Beale was cramp. Sima then added the second, thanks to largely to De Lucas, his intervention. He slid in and it sort of spun over Shamal George, and then Ryan Jack rounded things off in stoppage time with goal number 4. I was on with Chris afterwards, Joshua, and it was one of those ones we were discussing it. A number of positives to take, but we're not shouting from the rooftops just yet. Don't think Livingston offered anything really much in an attacking sense, and it was a pretty good opponent for Rangers to face. I did like David Martindale when he came in for his post-match press conference and said that you can just, to the journalists, you can just copy and paste what he said in the league meeting earlier on in the season. But yeah, it was pretty routine for Rangers in the end, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, you're right. I think the expectation for a home game in general, a home game against Livingston, is always going to be that Rangers win comfortably. So I don't think you're ever really going to be shouting from the rooftops about it. But with that said, I thought it was a lot better. It wasn't brilliant, but a lot better. The performance overall, and we can dive into all the details of that. Ridvan and Sima, Ridvan in particular, fantastic to see him just play well, because I think that there's been those flashes, and yes, he needs to do it consistently to really warrant a lot of excitement. But I thought that the difference with him and the team was really noticeable. The key difference, which we can get into for me, Derek, was how Rangers used the wide areas. I think they've been too predictable in the way they've used the wide areas. They've fallen into old habits this season with the fullbacks there at points, and I don't think they did do that last night. And as well, it's one game more where, as Michael Beale spoke about in the press conference after, in response to the question from Stevie, when Rangers signed players in the summer, they all were signed in the attacking third and the final third, and that's the area of the pitch where it seems like his team are most reliant on relationships, on players knowing, I guess, taking advantage of the freedom they have in that system, and that takes time. So I think Rangers, they needed a performance last night because of the nature of the performance against Motherwell at the weekend, which it wasn't entertaining. Their possession was really poor. Last night, I thought they started well without creating an abundance of chances within the first half, but they were always in control. Livingston, I don't think they had a shot on target throughout the whole game. And I thought Rangers looked more fluid. They sped the game up more obviously in possession. And as mentioned, I thought what they did on either side provided a little bit more impetus in the final third. So a positive night without shouting from the rooftops, as you say, Derek. But I think a lot for us to get into and kind of discuss why this performance was better when compared to the weekend.
Yeah, what was it? The main sort of alterations? Why was it better? Was it a case that Motherwell were better than what Livingston were last night? What did Michael Beale do differently last night that that saw Rangers progress with ease in the end?
I think there's a few things. I think firstly on the left-hand side, Ridvan and Barisic incidentally came on and played a fantastic ball in behind, in tribute to the one that Ridvan had done. But I guess to start with Ridvan, because he was the main talking point alongside Sima, you had a nice dynamic on the left-hand side where you had Sima was running in behind a lot. And I think often at points this season, Rangers haven't had that in their front three. If they've not had Matondo or Sima, and they give you, I guess, different types of running. Matondo's more how he'll run with the ball and attack players. Sima, as you saw last night, I think especially on the left-hand side, is more how he'll run in behind defences. And if you look at the first goal in particular, I don't think Sima did this quite regularly, where he'd pull off into the inside channel and then run in behind. And it's exactly, I think, if you're a defender where you don't want to be facing your goal with someone like Sima who's quick behind you. But it just stretched the game. It gave Rangers more options as opposed to everything always coming into feet. And how often have we had conversations this year where we've said the front three just looked like it lacked the kind of just pace and the ability to stretch the back line, that for Fashion Sakala's faults, he always gave you that threat last season, and maybe that pushes the back line back a little bit more and buys space for your creative players in the centre, or conversely, as it did last night, if Livingston are going to play a relatively high line and try and squeeze the pitch and limit the space that Rangers have to it, it gives you the space to run in behind. But Ridvan behind them, I think, just gives you more options on the ball. I feel like we've had this discussion before, but a good time to have it again. I don't think he's got the final ball that Barisic has, but I think he gives you more options outside of that. He wants to pass, he wants to play forward more frequently, and he can carry the ball. And you've seen that, I mean, most evidently for the goal. It was a fantastic individual effort. You saw his speed, and although he's a left back, Derek, if you had Barisic in there without the likes of Raskin, without Matondo, Rangers maybe don't have many players in their starting 11 who are actually really good ball carriers over distance and who can make runs like that, whether it's to progress up the pitch or to score as he did. So fingers crossed it's just cramped, because I just think overall he improves the dynamic of this Rangers team. I don't actually think so much it's been Beale's fault that he's not played Ridvan, because injuries have kind of prevented him from doing so, especially at the start of this season. And Barisic is obviously the player with experience, and he's been available, which is what Rangers have needed. And he had a good start to the season with a number of assists. But I think if you look at how Rangers used the wide areas when they got into the final third, especially on the left-hand side, yesterday when compared to Sunday, it's a better approach. And instead of Livingston knowing if Barisic is out there, they're going to have to defend crosses. Yes, they might be really good crosses, and yes, they're going to create over the course of the season, but it becomes too one-dimensional for me. If you have someone like Ridvan, then you have to defend that kind of greater variety of threats, and I thought that's what you saw on the left. And on the right, which we can maybe get into with Lammers, Tavernier and Cifuentes, it was a different style of threat, which I thought worked well as well.
Yeah, let's get to a few of the comments that are coming in. First of all, Elvis, who I've met on a couple of occasions, says all troops only get back to Warrington at 2 a.m. and just going to work now. That's what it means to follow Rangers. Take my hat off to you, Elvis, and all those that are travelling far and wide to attend Ibrox. A good friend of the show and contributor Adam Thornton gets in touch, only here for the Ridvan propaganda. I thought he was good as well last night, Joshua. That's much more like it. Let's hope that it gives the manager something to think about, I think, for Aberdeen coming up. He's got two good options there, very different options, of course, over in that left-hand side. Ryan Stewart with the point says, Ridvan just gives us so much more variety in our play. If only the lad could stay fit. That is a problem, isn't it? It's keeping him fit. And Peggy, showing her age here, she says, Yilmaz's run reminded her of a goal from Willie Henderson. Terrific footballer. I think they're probably about the same size and stature, both Ridvan and Willie Henderson. What a player he was. So yeah, it gives the manager something to think about for the weekend. Interestingly, he was asked in the post-match press conference about the play on either flank. This is what he said. I was pleased enough. The triangles on either side worked well. I thought Sifu went high and let Sam stay wider. Other times, James came inside. You saw when Dujon came in, we're looking at James going up a line and he gets a good assist for Ryan. It's just at this moment in time, if the game's coming, there's not much in between we can work on. Every time we play at the minute, it's just making sure everyone is fit and healthy for the next one. Our left side was probably the reason we won the game. Ridvan and Abdallah, between them, the energy they showed led to the first 2 goals. And he was asked on the back of that, how do you build on it? When you ask teams to play 3 games in 7 days and 4 in 10, the entertainment and energy levels are going to go down. I think for us, it's just keep winning. Look at the list of players who are out. They are the players who bring guile and style. I thought in the first half, Sam Lammers played well. I thought Abdallah was eye-catching. All the players who knew the way we played in the final third have moved on. We have come back this season without Cholak, Morelos, Sakala, Arfield, Hadji, Tillman, Lawrence, and Cantwell were out tonight. Ryan Kent, these guys had the relationships, and we are building new ones. This is what the new guys are building. There's a half chance we might see Kieran Dowell and Nico Raskin by the time we play St Mirren. To lose Kamar tonight possibly is disappointing and just shows how much strain the team is under at the moment. Thought that was interesting. Name check those players that were out, Joshua, and talking about building relationships as well, especially in that final third. Is that a fair comment as to maybe why we've not seen it click so far?
I think so, and it was something that maybe wasn't as much of an issue last season because it was working more consistently, and I think that will have been the frustration for Beale coming into this season. Rangers are a team I think they're an interesting team under Beale because they have a lot of structure, clear structure, and a lot of kind of hallmarks of a modern team. But then they have other areas which are kind of a break between maybe the more structured attacking play that teams will use. I think Rangers play with a lot more freedom in the final third. The difficulty is, I think, Derek, that when maybe players are new or I don't know, when the stadium's anxious or when those relationships haven't been formed, perhaps that doesn't click as well. And Beale was asked, I think it was on Viaplay, about style of play or the responsibility that places on players in the final third when you give them freedom. And he spoke about the goal at the weekend and the fullbacks providing width, not necessarily to always be the main threat from that areas, but to open up the pitch and create those pockets for attacking players to play in, which Rangers did once at the weekend, and that was an isolated moment. But I think the complaints, the confusion over the style of play this season, and Beale spoke about it before the St Johnstone game, come into the fact that there's a lot of new players. Those relationships haven't formed. And he mentions the word relationships a lot. Those relationships haven't formed, and thereby these players haven't been able to really exploit what Rangers have been doing in the final third. Now, the thing is, as you know, even if you're rebuilding the squad, especially the attacking areas that the Rangers have, you've not got the time. You've not got 6 months of the season to get this clicking and then be 10 points behind in the league. That's not a luxury you have at Rangers. And that's, I think, especially the Old Firm game at home, where I think the approach was wrong, and the Kilmarnock game away where the performance was off and you had Cantwell not starting. Those are the moments that have worked against Beale this season, and the time he needs maybe to build an attack that clicks, compared to last season, where although Rangers didn't win any trophies last season, Celtic won a treble. Beale didn't. He won the last Old Firm, but he didn't win the Old Firms at Hampden or at Parkhead. There was still I think quite a common excitement going into this season, and part of that was just out with the old, in with the new, and everyone likes that. Everyone likes to see kind of a new team come in. But I think part of that as well was there was signs of what he was doing last season that were encouraging, and it is going to take time, but that's the balance. You need results as well, and I thought was an interesting answer about relationships. On the right hand side, what I thought works better there compared to the left, and Sima, I thought, what's his 5th goal already, maybe starting to show exactly what he's about. I thought it was probably his best performance overall for Rangers. There's been games where his use of the ball, his first touch has been so poor, but last night I thought he was really good throughout. He had that moment for Lammers' chance where he turned a player on his right shoulder, played the ball across to Tavernier. So encouraging to see him perform like that. But I thought what helped on the right-hand side, we've got just 2 screen grabs to show here. I'll show this one first. This isn't marked because the Wisecat images aren't out yet, so you'll just have to kind of use your eyes on it. But you've got the right-hand side triangle here. You've got Cifuentes at the base of it. You've got Lammers wide, and you've got Tavernier kind of making that underlapping run. if on the left, Ridvan gave Rangers a bit more variation, and Seema did because Seema was stretching the play, and Ridvan can pass or he can carry and he can move inside or outside. I think the variation that Rangers had on the right was it wasn't always Tavernier out wide, because if Lammers is on the ball here and if it's Tavernier on the ball here, he's always going to look to kind of play on the outside because he's not left-footed, and that might be by way of a cross, it might be a ball down the side. But Livingston, if they're pressing from inside to outside, can always show the ball that way. But Lammers is, two-footed. So what you've seen quite often, and you've seen it for a couple of chances in the first half, is Tavernier would make these underlapping runs. He'd lose his man, Nubly, because Nubly would have to go out to the ball, and Lammers could cut inside, play against the press, and try and find the runs of Tavernier and Cifuentes on the inside. And that changed a lot at times, as in this situation. It was Cifuentes that was going higher. It was Tavernier who was sitting quite narrow inside next to Lundstrom and Jack, and Lammers wide. But interestingly, I asked Beale about that after the match. He didn't really say, "Oh, yeah, that was a specific tactical instruction," or "Yes, we wanted that." It was more about the focus on relationships, the onus on, at times Cifuentes would allow Lammers to go wide. At times Tavernier would recognise that, and he would be the one to run beyond. So I was expecting a bit more of an answer that, we didn't want to be so predictable in our play, so we had Lammers out there, and he gave us different options. But I think even from that answer and the quotes that you read out a minute ago, Derek, it's pretty obvious the emphasis on freedom and relationships in the final third. When that doesn't work, when Rangers aren't playing well and the results haven't come consistently, there's always going to be difficulties with that. But last night I thought you saw more encouraging signs that maybe those relationships are starting to build on either side.
Interesting. Right, let's get to some of the comments that were coming in. Just I thought the point was interesting from the manager on James Tavernier, and I know that he made a number of late substitutions, but the line you saw when Dujon came on, we're looking at James going up a line. Now that is interesting. A point that came in from George Fletcher, another one showing his age here. He said, "Blaise Sterling at right back and Tav in front of. Remember, we transition Fernando Rickson from right back to right half," I think he means there. Interesting that Michael Beale did say that, and we've seen it. And a goal came from it pretty much. Ryan Jacks rounding things off in stoppage time. Joshua with the fourth goal. James with a point. And myself and Chris talked about this yesterday, I'd imagine, on the show. With all the injuries, maybe Tav could play further forward to add pace. I'm not necessarily sure you'll add blistering pace right enough himself, but could we see that a lot more, perhaps, at the Sterling just in behind Tav and giving them more license to bomb forward?
I'm going to put it back to you, seeing as you're a man who wants James Tavernier as high up the pitch as possible. I mean, what do you? It kind of reminds me, Derek, of the last time that Rangers had a promising right back, and we've not seen that much of Sterling yet. But the last time they had a promising right back, and we're trying to get them both into the team, which is Patterson, and we've seen I think it was in pre-season once or twice, but never really materialised. We've seen Patterson and Tavernier on the pitch at the same time. What do you think? I mean, I thought it was something that Rangers might use in Europe because it gives you an extra defender. Sterling's quite a good defender. He's not a centre half necessarily, but he can play in a back three. It would get you your dream of seeing James Tavernier, as I say, as high up the pitch as possible at all times.
Yeah, he said it himself. There was points last night where he was almost a centre forward. At points he was roaming around, so he was given a bit of licence. I think part of that was based on the fact that Livingston were pretty happy just to be camped in. They offered very little going forward, which helped matters. But listen, he said it himself. It's worth seeing it. We've not really seen it before, and I'd imagine they have worked on different formations in training. But they've got a good right back there. We've not really seen a lot of Dujon Sterling just yet. We've seen him more so at left back more than anything else, filling in. But he's come up here to play football. There was a number of clubs that were sniffing about him, and Rangers managed to entice him to Ibrox. I would like to see more of him. If that means accommodating Tavernier and pushing him up one, then I'm all for it. It has been a problematic area of the pitch for Rangers for some time now over on that right-hand side. So why not try it? That being said, do we try it on Saturday? I'm not entirely sure they do, but the injuries are racking up, Joshua. So it's one of the ones that might be square pegs and round holes for a lot of it.
Yeah, but and I think even going back to what I was just talking about there, the kind of wide triangles, that allowed Tavernier to play a lot more central and a lot higher. And we actually seen that at points under Gio when he'd use a more touchline kind of obvious touchline hugging winger. But I think if last night's an anxious game and maybe Rangers fall back into their old habits and Tavernier's crossing the ball a lot more, then you don't see that kind of fluidity and you don't see him move inside a lot more. But he's I think as you've seen, especially in European games, he's such a dangerous option at the back post. He's probably one of Rangers' best players when it comes to attacking the box. So if at points you can get someone like Lammers who has that option of a left foot, and it just gives, I guess, Livingston on that side a different option. As mentioned, if they know that every time the ball goes wide to the right, it's going to be Tavernier who's wide, and likely they're going to have to defend a through ball, even if it's a good one or a cross. I think they'd rather that than knowing, okay, but a few times a game you're going to have to face Lammers, who's a really good 1v1 dribbler on that side, and he's going to give you different options, and then Tavernier is going to move into the box, and then again, the markers are going to have to consider different things, as mentioned before, when you're looking at if Tavernier's making those kind of moves inside the pitch, then he maybe loses his marker a bit as well. So I just think it gives you more options, and with the age he's at as well, you maybe don't always want him motoring up and down the pitch. If you look at the position he was in for quite a lot of that first half inside the pitch, it maybe helps you a little bit to not concede as many counterattacks as well, because instead of your right back being so high and wide, he's narrower, he's closer to his defence, and he's in a central position. So yeah, it was notable last night. I thought it was interesting. As you say, Derek, Sterling's not going to sit on the bench all season. He's come here to play games. He's not 18 or 19. He's 23. He's a player that obviously Beale rates quite highly. So one to watch out for. I think it's interesting, but I think more than seeing a back three, a back five over the next few games, we'll see that. Hopefully that continuation of that right-sided triangle, because I thought Cifuentes looked more comfortable higher up the pitch as well, as opposed to playing kind of in a midfield two, as he has done more frequently recently.
I thought it was interesting, the manager mentioning that in his post-match press conference. I want to talk about Abdallah Sima. We've slightly touched on him. David Gillespie with a point. Fantastic individual performance from Sima last night. Arguably probably his best in a Rangers jersey. And Robert with an interesting point. Just on the forward line, of course, Kemar Roof. We're yet to hear what the state of play is with that. We'll get a more accurate idea when we speak to the manager tomorrow. But Robert says, no doubt in my mind that Sima is best through the middle, and I would play him every day before Dessers in the middle. Interesting point. It was sort of he and Lammers at points were drifting out wide. Joshua Kemar Ruth, who didn't have his best of games. The fact that you had a sort of it was something to do with his
groin.
What was it? His groin. Yeah, I think that explains why he wasn't as prominent as what he would have liked to have been. But Sima, would you like to see him play through the middle? Is that worth a shot, do you think?
Yeah, I thought Roof, although he didn't have the best game in the final third, what he did give you, and it was, Beale said they kind of went back to the old way. He kind of played as that false nine who dropped in at all points, and I think that helped Rangers because they always basically had then an extra man in midfield. So they could, there was, for that first half in particular, they really did control the ball, and all the game was played in Livingston's half. So I thought Roof helped with that because he gives you that option that maybe Dessers doesn't. To be able to drop in with his back to goal at all times and kind of play as an extra midfielder. Sima through the middle, I agree with the comment. I think it was St Johnstone away where he came on to the game and was really good through the middle and gave you that option of running in behind. I've preferred him on the right-hand side to the left so far, and I was speaking to someone before the game last night and I said, I hope he's playing on the right, but then that didn't make sense because you had Cifuentes and Tavernier who kind of gave you that in-behind running threat on the right-hand side last night, so you needed Sima kind of on the left side of the triangle. But I think what suited him was he wasn't really picking the ball up, and he wasn't picking the ball up maybe in positions Matondo would, and I think we said it earlier on, they're kind of different, going to carry the ball or they're going to offer a running threat in a different way. He had the space to run in behind for the first goal, for his third goal, and I don't think it's any coincidence that both those goals come from him running onto the ball as opposed to always running with the ball from deep, because I don't think he's a dribbler who's going to beat three men like Matondo might and carry you through the whole of the pitch, but he is going to give you that running threat in a different way. So if Roof's out, and you'd imagine that Rangers take ultimate precaution with him because he has got over those injury issues so far this season, but there's always going to be that risk that because he's had so many, maybe his body reacts in certain ways. I think there is an argument to play Sima through the middle, but then if Matondo's out as well, you probably want two number 9s in that forward line. I think Dessers, I don't think he impressed when he came on last night. I thought he was a little better. He wasn't caught offside. It was kind of an okay in the middle performance. He probably should have shot quicker on a couple of occasions, but he's now in that difficult situation because he's not started well, where he's going to be come under more scrutiny, and not naturally so, because a lot of money's been spent on him, and he's not impressed so far. So I think it probably will be him and Sima. But I think Roof and Sima have looked good so far, purely because, again, Roof's going to drop towards the ball, and Sima was able to make those kind of depth runs in behind, which made a big impact for the first and the third goal.
Yeah, I'm concerned if it's a groin issue with Roof, then we won't be seeing him at the weekend. That's just my gut feeling. Dessers, yeah, I know you. He's just too cumbersome for me. I said to Chris last night on the show, it's almost like when Connor Goldson goes up front. He just doesn't look like a striker at this moment in time for me. I'd love to be proved wrong, but he needs to do more. Ryan Stewart with the point. What's the front three for Saturday then? Lammers, Sima, and one of Dessers or Wright. I think that may well be the case.
Yeah. I think with Dessers, because I think he's a central striker option. I don't think Lammers or Sima. Maybe seen it is, but maybe not at home. I think how regularly have we seen him play through the middle? Not all that frequently. St Johnstone away is the only real game that comes to mind. Yeah, I mean, Dessers, we spoke about it at the start of the week, didn't we, Derek? I think that the redeeming qualities he has shown so far is his final ball. We think of the game against Morton, the Old Firm goal that was chopped off, PSV.
Yeah.
I think he's shown that. I think he's shown at points. He's not a really obviously quick player, and I agree with you. I think he looks physically limited at points, where he looks slower than I'd anticipated he would do. He's also someone that Beale obviously trusts to kind of lead the press, and he played 8 of the first 9 games, but he clearly isn't playing with confidence either. And I think you saw that on a couple of occasions last night, where he had the opportunity to maybe release the ball quicker. I think that comes into the fact that he's been caught offside so regularly as well, because he doesn't have that type of pace that Sima showed last night to get in behind, and he's maybe not going to overload the midfield as Roof is. So I think for the money that's been spent on him over these next 3 games, he'll be the one that starts up top. But I don't think there's any doubt that he needs to click into gear. Although, as I think a few comments have said recently, this has been a kind of common theme at previous clubs where it's taken him time to get going. So if he was able to turn it on for the next few games, then I think he'd win a few more fans. But 3 important games, I think, for Beale to make sure that they can build a little bit of momentum and a little bit more excitement at the style of play going into international break. Because Aberdeen at home is always a big game, and it's always a game that I think the crowd will be really up for, and an opportunity for the teams kind of put on a bit of a bigger showing. And then you go away in Europe, and that's an opportunity to get 6 points in your first 2 group games in Europa League. So big few games coming up before the next international break.
Certainly is, and Aberdeen, of course, Rangers always at their cup final, so they'll be well up for it. Barry Robson will have them fired up for that one, so I think they'll be much more of a test than what Livingston were yesterday. Colin laid a bit of support for Cyril. He says, I think we have to give Dessers some backing. You boys have been overly negative since day dot. The team play has been mince. None of the strikers have been on fire, so there's a bit of backing from Colin there. For Cyril Dessers. Just a point that came in from Just John on Ridvan. Has anyone heard what the script is with Yilmaz? Hope the wee man isn't injured after his cracking goal. We're told it was cramp, John. That's the reason why he came off. There was a comment last night saying he probably engineered coming off just to get the acclaim from the supporters. But it felt like a big moment for him, Joshua. He certainly loved scoring that goal, and why wouldn't you? It was an absolute belter, but that could just be his springboard to go on and bigger and better things at Rangers.
Yeah, we've seen a similar thing with Matondo this season before his injury, incidentally. And, it was only a couple of weeks ago they were saying, isn't it brilliant? Rangers have no injuries, and now they have about 6 or 7 so important players. But yeah, I think Matondo was 23, Ridvan's 22, both players who in different ways have arrived with potential. Ridvan maybe more in the upwards curve. Matondo's kind of already had that as a young player, needs to recover it. But I thought it was a big moment for him last night. And as mentioned, I don't think he's been consistently fit enough to stake a claim yet. Cast your mind back to the game against Aberdeen, the 4-1 win last season. And he started the game really brightly, had those a couple runs inside the pitch, similar to last night. And it's such a good threat for your fullback to have, I think, because teams aren't used to it. It's just another thing to consider. It's another thing to think about. If you know that your fullback's always going to stay wide and he can't take you on 1v1, I think it's easier to defend if you've got someone like Ridvan, who, Beale always speaks about hybrid players and, modern footballers who a left back doesn't just have to even now defend. It doesn't just have to overlap and get up the wing, but now has to be able to overlap, to move inside the pitch, to offer lots of different options. And if you have that right-sided triangle we were talking about, Derek, working well, I think Ridvan gives you the option to do that, whereas I don't think Barisic does, because, again, for his qualities, I think he's not going to move inside the pitch, kind of as you see James Tavernier doing the right. He gives you those different options, and he's not going to be able to carry the ball like Ridvan does. So I think it makes Rangers more unpredictable. Hopefully he's not injured and this isn't just another promising performance that is followed up with a spell in the treatment table. But I think last night, sometimes at a club like Rangers, you need moments, don't you, to really win fans over.
Yeah.
I think Matondo's was that PSV goal, Lundstrom's performances when he had a really difficult start in the Europa League. Hopefully that can be that for Ridvan last night, because he's only 22. He's got this reputation as a young player for a reason, and let's see if he can do it over a sustained period of time.
Yeah, Denzo, the point, says, I think it helps Ridvan to have left-footed Davis playing at his side. Yeah, I thought Davis and Goldson were good again last night. Not that they were tested really in the grand scheme of things, but yeah, a good win for Rangers. And now take on Hearts in the last four. Just before we wrap up, sad news yesterday with the loss of Jim Forrest, of course. Rangers hero, scored goals for fun. Oh, how I wish we'd have a Jim Forrest leading the line for Rangers. Graham Morrison says, RIP Jim Forrest, Jers legend. Yes, absolutely. There's a brilliant piece on the website this morning, folks. Do go and check it out from David Leggett with his memories of Jim. It really was a real cracking player for Rangers in the 60s, so do go and check it out. Okay, that'll do us there. Thanks to everyone for interacting with the show as ever. Huge thanks to Joshua. Also, we'll be back. It will be a members video maybe at some point.
There will be today. Yeah, there'll be a members video today. There'll be one on Friday. There'll be one at the weekend. We'll be looking a bit more in detail at kind of that theme of the wide areas. So if you like that type of thing, I'm sure lots of people won't as well, because they'll think it's boring. But for those who do like that type of thing, a bit of a tactical look back on the game. Lots of content on the website. The Jim Forrest piece is excellent. Love these pieces because it just goes into detail that you don't know. He was the first British player to score at San Siro. He scored 57 goals in one season for Rangers. I think he scored 3 or 4 goals in the League Cup final. His records, they read out at Ibrox last night, was something like 148 goals in 160 or 70 appearances, roughly something like that, which is incredible. So
50 goals in his first 45 games, which is crazy.
Wouldn't mind that. You can understand why new strikers struggle at Rangers if that's the records they're up against. But great to learn a bit more about a player like that after the sad news of his passing. So that's on the website as well, alongside plenty of other content to come over the next couple of days.
Yes, absolutely. Right, folks, we'll wrap up there. We'll speak to you again. Well, Joshua will for the members a little later on if you want to catch that. I'll be back tomorrow. I think we're both back on tomorrow, Joshua, if I'm not mistaken.
We're back tomorrow. We'll be looking ahead to the game, press conference day. So
plenty to come your way.
Plenty to come your way, and another game of football just 2 games away. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, super stuff. Right, folks, we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.